Okay, this is take two because it kept freezing. So hopefully this is a different spot. So hopefully it's not going to freeze, but we'll see how we go. So I really wanted to share something that's been really prevalent through my life, a deep fear that I've held and I've done a lot of work on, and I feel like it's layers, right? So this is the fear of rejection. And if you have experienced this and it shows up in different ways for you, I would love to know, give me a yes if you've struggled with the fear of rejection, and let me know how does that show up for you? Because I think that the more that we share that so many of us hold this, then the more we can actually realize how much connection that we can have, because we're all so similar, although it shows up in different ways. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to share this is because I imagine that sometimes people might look at me and the way I show up in the world, quite boldly and vulnerably, and I can get on stage and I can talk to hundreds of people. I can get on TV and talk to reaching hundreds of thousands of people. But to approach one man that I might be attracted to or want to feel drawn to scares the shit out of me. I'm just holy shit, what do I do? What do I do? What do I say? I don't know. And the other vulnerability with that is I'm a relationship coach and I'm a love coach. I should know, there's this story I should know how to go up and approach a man. I should know how to flirt. But these are real two big vulnerabilities, is approaching and flirting are not my expertise, and something that I'm working on right now. And once I'm in the connection, once I'm talking to the person, once I'm in the connection, once I'm on the date, I'm sweet. I flow and I vibe and I'm connected and I can open up quite easily. But it's kind of getting past that initial vulnerability around making the connection that I struggle with. And so how I've addressed this in the past is by doing a lot of online dating. Well, not even addressed it, more avoided it. So I would use online dating to avoid even having to approach men. And I literally have been on hundreds of dates, a lot. And I had no problem getting getting dates. And yeah, the online dating would really, I wouldn't have to do any approaching. We're on the date, here we are, done. And talking to them online, no problem. But if I'm in a scenario, say, let's just say I was in a nightclub or in maybe a tantra workshop space, and I've been in these scenarios before, it's I've struggled to actually go up and approach that person, and usually the person I'm most attracted to, I will avoid the most. Because it's almost if they can feel my energy, that they can feel that I like them or that I'm interested, I can't show them. It's I don't want to show them anything. And then sometimes when I've been around them, it's I don't know what to say. It's how do I found myself getting weird and I'm not acting like myself. And where's this confident EJ gone? Who's this person? And so, yeah, it just seems to me, what is this about? And I get, and I know that it's this fear of rejection. And it's really interesting, right? It's really interesting because I can show up in so many ways, and not in fear, but yet this one thing. And so I want to share with you a couple of scenarios that I've been in where this has played out. And then I want to share with you what have I been doing about it to address it? What have I been doing it to push past that? Because I'm at a point now where it's this is not serving me, right? I know there's so many beautiful men that I want to connect with, whether it be in a friendship or more intimately, that I hold myself back. And you know what? They could be thinking the same thing, right? They could be going on for them. And I know this has actually been a lot to do with not feeling physically attractive enough. And this is when I was younger, I felt quite fat and ugly. And I had really low self-esteem and I was very shy and quiet and I didn't know how to talk to men. It's kind of funny now that I actually, one of the things I teach is how to actually talk to men But I teach how to talk to men when you're already connected with the man, right? Like when you're in the date, like when you're in the scenario, like how to build connection, how to build intimacy, but not the getting to the part, right? And so when I was younger, like there's a couple of things that I really remember, like to the point where I was at a dance party when I was 16. And it was always like all my friends would get the attention, but it felt like no one even noticed me, that I was quite invisible. And we were at the dance party, and my friends were all for some boys, and these guys came up to me, and I'm on the dance floor, and they're going like, tss, to me, like, tss, like, I'm like, what are you doing? And I literally thought that they were making fun of me. Like that they were like, because like they were like literally making fun of that I must not be very attractive, so they're making fun of me. But actually what I know now is that they actually thought I was hot, right? And even some of the guys from school later on, like I just thought I felt quite invisible. And later on, after I left school, I actually ended up hooking with a couple of the guys from high school, and they were like, oh, we always thought you were like attractive, like la la la. And I'm like, really? Like, oh wow, I just didn't see that. So really interesting. Like I had this whole perception that I wasn't attractive, and that no boys liked me, and that no one wanted me, and although like I wasn't one of the popular girls, I was one of the like more like the smart, intelligent girls that like studied hard, and I was not like brown, like I had brown hair back then, and I was just like, I had this concept in my head that to be attractive I'd have to look like a Barbie doll. And so I kind of think it's funny that I ended up with blonde hair and big tits, but anyway, that's not the point. But it's just interesting that I had this perception of what would be attractive. Now what I know now is that the whole belief system, the whole concept of not being attractive, like not feeling attractive, sorry, and thinking people were maybe making fun of me, was putting up this wall like this, and I didn't have any confidence. So of course people didn't like really notice or come up to me. And I also heard from other people that they thought because I was so quiet that I was a snob, or that they couldn't approach me, like I was intimidating, this kind of thing. And I just thought I was like invisible, you know? And so it's really interesting. So school was, for me, was like, that was like what I was like at school. I was pretty shy and quiet and didn't feel like boys paid me any attention until my last year of school, and then I started getting a lot of attention. That's another story. I'm not going to go into that, but it wasn't necessarily attention for good reasons. But yeah, it was an interesting year, my last year of school, but that's another story. So recently, like I was like, a few months ago, I said to my friends, you know what, we need to learn how to flirt. Like, oh, I need to learn how to flirt. Who else struggles with this? And so many of my friends are like, yeah, like we need to learn how to flirt and blah, blah, blah. And like, I was like, yeah, because this is one of the things I really want to address. And so I started like looking online at like dating coaches and you know, how to flirt with this stuff. And we still haven't been on this night out. We're going to go out on this night where we're going to learn how to, like, we're going to practice this flirting, right? Without any attachment to what happens. But I noticed that like a few weeks ago, I was out with a friend, and this really like good looking guy came in, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is so attractive. He's exactly my type. And suddenly my friend was talking to his friend, and I was like, oh, what do I say? Like, what do I say? What do I do? And so I was like, I'll go to the bathroom and let me figure it out. And then maybe I'll just stand over, like, but not too close. And then I was like, right, EJ, you know, you're going to go to the bar and you're going to stand next to him and you're going to admire his tattoos. Also, you're going to say how much you like his tattoos. Yeah, if any ladies want to join us on the flirting night out, let us know, because I reckon this could be like a thing. We could go out and like practice. Yeah, so, and so I did. I went up and I went at the bar, and he was standing next to me, and I was like, oh, you know, I've been admiring your tattoos, rah, rah, rah. And then he was like really not giving me much. So I just kind of left that. Now, there was this other guy that I'd kind of been looking at earlier in the night, who was standing about 2 meters from me at this stage, and he kept looking at me. He kept looking over at me. Now I could tell, and I knew he wanted to talk to me. I was like, okay, this guy wants to talk to me. I was like, EJ, just go and talk to him. And then I was kind of spying on the other guy a little bit, and then this guy, and I was like, EJ, just go talk to him. Like, go talk to him. Why aren't you talking to him? Blah, blah, blah. Like, in my head, like, just talk to him. He clearly wants to talk to you, but he doesn't have the balls to, like, he doesn't have the confidence to, like, he's not, like, confidence to come and talk to you. Like, just go and talk to him. And I was, like, in my head for, like, ages going, why won't you talk to him? And then I was like, okay, and then I can't remember exactly what I did. I don't know. I just kind of, like, didn't do it, right? I didn't do it. And then I got to this point, I was like, I called myself and I was like, all right, I'm now going to talk to him because this other guy's not giving me anything. And I'm going to talk to this guy. And then I finally get the balls up. and then I go to the table and he's just walked out the door. And I was like, hey, EJ, you missed your opportunity, right? This guy could have been lovely, I don't know. But, and I was like, oh, well, obviously it wasn't meant to be, you know. If it was meant to be, it would have happened, blah, blah. And then, okay, so what ended up happening is I ended up in the taxi with this guy, the guy that I'd originally spoken to. And we ended up hooking up, but this is the guy that I did the live stream on about who tried to fuck me like a porn star, which now I was like, well, I'm not even really interested in this guy because we're totally not vibing. And, you know, and so then I was like, I wonder what it would have happened if I'd actually gone and spoken to the guy that I knew was actually showing me interest, was actually giving me interest, right? So it's like just, interesting how that played out. So, and it was interesting how I was like kind of interested in the guy that was kind of not giving me attention. I was like, how does that play out in my life? So this is just one scenario, right, of like where like have held myself back. And that's actually like, this is actually a lot more, what's the wording I need to find? It's developed, right? Has developed since, like, in the past, it would have been a lot worse. Now, I have to say, I don't drink a lot, so when I used to drink a lot or be on drugs, I would easily talk to men, and I think that's one of the reasons why I drank a lot and took drugs, because I could just easily make conversation, and so it kind of took out the fear that I had there and made me, like, I guess, more confident. So now I had this beautiful weekend last weekend, the Taste of Love Festival. I was speaking there. So I was presenting, and there were a lot of beautiful men there, a lot of conscious men, and my intention for the weekend was to actually be more open to connecting with men and having conversations and approaching and being more open, this kind of thing. And I'm happy to say that this actually did evolve, so this is good, right? Because I found at the last festival that I was presenting at back in December, I actually held myself back a lot. I was dating someone at the time and we were going through some stuff, but then after, like, on the second day, I opened myself up more. But what I also noticed is I put a lot of men in the friend zone. So this is another one of the ways that I avoid feeling rejection, is by friend zoning. I do this quite a bit, and it's like, well, just get to know them as a friend, and then that'll be safe, and then eventually maybe we'll see if something will evolve. Meanwhile, I'm not being flirty. I'm not being my sensual, like, sexy, flirtatious self. That this is actually a part of me, which I, you know, when I'm dating someone, I really allow myself to go there, like, massively. But so it's kind of like a way that it's like that wall that I've put up, which I'm breaking down. Like, I've been breaking it down, which has been feeling amazing. So I went in with this new intention with this tantra festival, and the first workshop I went to was called Conscious Pickup. I was like, this is so perfect, right? This is great. So that was by Dave McDermott. He does lots of work with men and empowering men, and so I went to the workshop, which was a man's workshop, and I was like, no, I need to know about this conscious pickup stuff, and plus there's going to be some beautiful men there. And so actually there was quite a few women in the workshop, and we had some great conversations. Shared a lot, had some great conversations, and it was geared towards men. And one of, I guess, the biggest messages that I got out of it about men and understanding men is that how deeply afraid so many men are of rejection, and how they long to be approached, and how they struggle to approach, and how big it is, like especially in Australia, like how massive it actually is. And so for me, it was really insightful to see that, to see so many men speaking up about that. And then I knew I had to get vulnerable. Then I basically shared with the whole group my vulnerability, and I said, so I just want to share here that I actually am really afraid to approach men. Like it really, like I sometimes freeze up and I want to avoid, and it's sorry, I'm seeing lots of comments here. Let me just swipe across. I'm going to come back to your comments, I promise. Because otherwise I go on a tangent and I get distracted, and then I don't get to my point. So I'm going to try to stay on point as much as possible. So I was speaking to this vulnerability, and I knew that I had to do this in front of a group of men. I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak to this in front of this group of men because A, I know that it's going to help me address this and look at it. And B, it's going to make the men feel more comfortable to come and talk to me. Because the next piece I spoke to was, you know, I know that I can be intimidating to people, especially I'm in a space where I'm a facilitator. I know that when I used to go to spaces where people were facilitating, I would kind of put the facilitator on a pedestal, and I would kind of create a separation and be like, well, I can't talk to them because who am I? Like, they're this big facilitator, and like, they're like amazing, and why would they want to talk to me, and blah, 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 all that bullshit, like I used to tell myself. And then I stepped into this presenting and facilitating and realized that we're just human. We're just all human. But I put this kind of thing. And so I guess I wanted to drop into my humanness and address any of that might have been in the space. And then what Dave said to me, Dave was like, so EJ, do you flirt? And I'm like, I'm like, no, that scares me. He's like, well, you just got to like do some eye contact and some smiling. And I said, I'm the type of person who who wants to make eye contact, but almost is like, oh, if I make eye contact, they're going to know that I like them. And like, God forbid that they see that I like them. And then what if I, you know, that kind of thing. But they're never going to know if I don't, right? They're never going to know. So I'm aware of all of this. Like I know this stuff. But actually doing it is like a whole different ball game. And I push myself though. I do try to push myself a little bit and try it. And then the other piece to this, and this is what I found was really, really interesting, was what was underneath that is like this feeling of, if I give them a little bit, if I give a man a little bit, if I give him a little bit of interest, then he's going to want to take a whole mile, that he's going to want more. And I don't know until I know you and get to know you a little bit if I'm actually interested in exploring more. Because I don't just go off physical attraction, which was why with this guy in the club who I actually ended up hanging out with and realized I wasn't into him, like he was physically attractive. And then when I got to talk to him, I was like, actually, no, I'm not really that interested in you. And now I'm in this situation that I don't want to be on. And now I had to say no to having sex with you. And I don't even want to be in this position, right? And so yeah, it was kind of that was going on there. It was like this underlying thing of, if I show a guy a little bit of interest, then it's all this fear of like, what is he going to like project his sexual energy on me? Is he going to want more than I'm willing to give? And I don't like, you know, what if I have to let him down? And like, what if he gets all clingy, or what if like all this stuff? And then I realized I was like this really interesting belief that I had that a man won't want to get to know me or be interested in who I am if I'm not willing to provide him with sex. So this is linked to this kind of thing around attaching self-worth with sexuality. or providing sex that I've also had this underlying, which I've done a lot of work on. But I mean, I was an escort for 6 years, and that was like ingrained in me day after day after day. Like I was, my value was in providing sex. Like this is, my value with men was in providing sex. So, I mean, it is kind of funny too when you look at it. It's like I've got this fear of approaching men, yet I had men pay me like thousands of dollars to be with them. So, it just kind of, it feels like really contradictory, right? But when it's like emotions involved and when it's personal, like it's a totally different scenario, right? It's totally different scenario. So that was really interesting to notice, is like this kind of thing of, and it's also to do with like, unless I feel attractive or a guy finds me attractive, then he's going to be interested in who I am. So these are all stories, right? These aren't true. These are stories, but I've been running them as truth, right? So, and then I've been showing up from that place. And this vulnerability is, what if I get to know a man and maybe I'm attracted to him and I get to know him and I'm not interested anymore? Or maybe and maybe the opposite. Maybe I get to know someone and I do become interested and I want to explore more, but I don't know how to express that, right? And so I am working through this, and I'm about to share that as well. So what happened after the conscious pickup workshop, I had quite a few men come up to me and just like share with me how they loved my vulnerability, and they wouldn't, like, it was really interesting for them to know that I felt this way, because they never would have thought that someone like me would have felt that way. And then I went to the Art of Kissing workshop, right? The Art of Kissing workshop, and I ended up having 3 beautiful kisses with 3 lovely men who may be watching this. And this is big for me. This is like not like, I didn't go around kissing people. Like I literally kissed, before the Art of Kissing workshop, 3 men in the last year. 3 men. So for me it was a big deal, like, to do that, because kissing is such a personal big thing for me now, and so I just found that it was actually beautiful to just allow myself to go there and not feel like I was giving my power away. Like I actually was really true. So the great thing about the Art of Kissing workshop, which was by Jessie, was that it was all about boundaries and consent. So it was in a safe space where we could say yes and no, and not have to feel bad about that. Like sometimes there's this kind of thing in me, whereas like if I have to say no to someone, like there can be a little bit of edge of, oh, like I don't want to hurt them, don't want to offend them, like, or let them down, this kind of thing. And I explore lots of this within my sessions. But again, it's like taking it out into the real world as well. So it's almost like sometimes I don't want to even be in those positions, and I avoid being in those positions where I, have to express my desire and that fear of rejection, or have to say no and the fear of hurting someone else, right? So what was really interesting at this workshop is that was this other guy there that I wanted to kiss. And he's a friend of mine, and I've totally friend-zoned him. But yet this is underlying attraction there that I've not expressed, or actually didn't realize I had. It kind of was there, but I was like, no, he's just a friend. And then I realized at the weekend, I was like, no, actually there's an attraction there, and I feel drawn to him. And so in the kissing workshop, I was like, oh, should I go up to him? No, like he can come to me. If he's interested, he'll come to me, like, but then what if he probably thinks that I'm just a friend, and like, maybe I'm not open to receiving it, like all this story, right? And so what I ended up doing was not, and there was even this point in time where you had to have your eyes closed, and the person would come up and be like, and you could voice to them, but they'd have their eyes closed, can I kiss you? And the person would say yes or no. And I was like, okay, Isha, this is a really good time to go up, because he won't even know that it's you, like, unless he knew my voice, right? Which he probably does, but yeah, it would have been really interesting to see. And so when it came to my turn to keep my eyes closed, I just didn't participate. I was like, oh, I just didn't participate. But I was actually really impressed with myself for like kissing 3 men. And they were good too. I enjoyed it anyway. And they were sweet, and it was really beautiful. So, and so I got a bit distracted thinking about these kisses. I was like, Okay, so long story, still long. I was going to say long story short, but it's not short. But I've got one more little point, and then we're going to get on to how I'm addressing this, right? And I've been kind of putting tidbits in there about how I'm addressing it. And one of the ways that I address it is by being an observer and just standing back and being like, okay, what are the stories that I'm telling myself? Why am I holding myself back? What do I need to work on here, right? What are the fears in place? And actually being an observer to that, and looking at that and looking, okay, what's the next step for me to address this, and where do I need to be vulnerable, right? So, and sometimes it's about having the conversation, which I am going to be having some conversations with some certain men about this, which feels like super vulnerable, but it's time, it's really time. Okay, went on a tangent, so let's get back to finishing the kissing workshop. Actually, we finished the kissing workshop and now to the end of the taste of love. So eventually, towards the taste of love, I ended up having, a couple of other kisses. And I did, I don't know if I want to say too much. It feels really vulnerable to say. So, no, I'm not going to say it until I'm going to tell you guys tomorrow. I'll tell you guys tomorrow. You're going to hold off. There's like a little piece in there that I want to share about the guy that I just shared about. Yeah, I'm going to hold off. Okay, so you can wait. Because it feels really vulnerable to share right now. So, okay, so, okay, so back to where I was going with this. So how I'm addressing it is by having some conversations. Because what I find is sometimes, like, there's different levels of vulnerability, right? And I find that sometimes I know and understand, I've done a lot of study on what men find attractive in women and what makes them attractive. And a lot of it, like, this playfulness and fun and spontaneity and, what draws a man to a woman. And sometimes I've found that I've tried to show up in these energies of playfulness and spontaneity and it's coming from a place of wanting him to be attracted to me and not be rejected, but that's actually not being authentic, and they're not really seeing the real me. Even though I do hold these energies of playfulness and spontaneity, and I hold this stuff, right, and I explore this stuff, it's about where it's coming from, and and sometimes it may be I don't say exactly what I mean. This is common for a lot of women as well, like we don't necessarily get right to the issue or right to the point, which I'm probably doing on this whole live stream. Straight away, it's kind of there's this fluffiness around it, like let me like explain stuff first and trying to create safety for what's really going on underneath and what I'm really scared of and what's really vulnerable. And sometimes the fear might be that the man might not be able to hear us or might reject us or might not be able to hold us or whatever is there, right? So I find sometimes this dance around the real vulnerability or the real fear. So now I'm at this point where I'm like done, like dancing and fluffing around, which is why I'm going to share with you that thing tomorrow. I'm not quite ready yet because it is someone else involved and I need to have a conversation with them first. So that's why. And I feel like I'll be ready tomorrow once I've spoken to them. I just don't feel like I want to say it yet because they may watch the stream and I kind of want to wait until I've talked to them. So it's not that necessarily, it feels vulnerable, but it's not necessarily that, it's not necessarily that I don't want to share it. It's that I do want to share it. It's just not quite yet. And so I'm going to have these conversations where I really go into, hey, like, when I met you, this is how I felt. This is what's been coming up for me. Like, I actually really, like, am attracted or feel desire or whatever's there, right? But I'm afraid that if I share this with you, that our connection might change, and you know, I'm afraid that we might get disconnected, or like that you won't want to be friends with me, stuff like that, whatever fear is there. And the thing is, I've had scenarios before with men that I've been friends with that I've secretly like maybe had a thing for or something and not spoken it. And then like years later, they like tell me how they were like had a crush on me. They're like, oh, like I was actually really liked you, rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, oh my God, I liked you too. And so it's like that willingness to just go in and be like, hey, like this is what I'm feeling towards you. Like this is the desire that I'm having. This is the attraction that I feel. And be willing to not have that be reciprocated. That's where I feel right now. And not even on that, even in a deeper level than that, it's like me, like actually being really radical with my honesty. I'm reading this book, Radical Honesty, at the moment. And being like there's some men in my space that I see as quite powerful men. And like I used to pedestal and think like, you know, they're like way too good or whatever. And for me now, I'm at this place where that's just bullshit, and that I'm actually going to tell them that and go, hey, like, you know, you're a powerful man. I really respect you for this. I notice that I'm putting you on this pedestal. I'm like making myself not there, whatever. And actually like having that vulnerable conversation instead of going into the old ways of maybe pulling back my energy and being avoidant or not having the conversations that I want to have and not being in my full juiciness and light. And because I can guarantee once I speak the vulnerability that's causing like some kind of avoidance, then the playfulness and the spontaneity becomes natural. Like it just shines through because I'll feel safe to show up in that energy instead of trying to be like, oh, I'm going to try and show up in this way because that person might like me, that kind of thing. I also just remembered something about the weekend. This guy, the one that I'm friends with, I actually noticed myself avoiding him a lot of the weekend, like not trying to get too close. And there was a point where we got quite close and I pulled away, like where it was getting a little bit intimate, and I was like, and I pulled my energy away, and then he was with someone else, and there was this kind of piece of me that was like, oh, I wish that was me. And I was like, well, EJ, of course it's not going to be you because you pulled your energy away, right? So interesting. And that's where I started to realize how much this is costing me. Like, how much is it costing me what is it costing me to not allow myself to go into those connections or speak my vulnerability and speak my truth and my desire, and then be like seeing other people experiencing these things and I'm not, and be like, well, you know, that's my own fault. I'm like created this myself, right? So now it's like this willingness to just go for what I want and to ask for what I want and to speak my desires, even if they can't be met. And so without having the expectation that that person has to meet that, you know, or, you know, and to know that if I do feel rejected, that I actually have all the tools that I need to feel that and to process that and to use all my stuff that I teach other people to go into that and know that actually I'm not going to die. I'm going to be completely fine. Yeah. So I guess that the process here is the first step is to be willing, right? Be willing to be vulnerable and show up and at the risk of rejection, at the risk of abandonment, right? And not trying to say the right thing that will make someone like you or be more attracted to you or less likely that they'll reject you. To not trying to say the right thing is to just really say what you're really feeling, right? And start noticing when you're not saying exactly what you mean, exactly what's in your heart, right? And the second piece of this is to ask yourself, What are the stories that you tell yourself, and are they really true, right? And what is this costing you? And what would you prefer to believe? What would you want? What do you really want to think? And where do you want to live from? Like, where do you want to? And then also asking, you know, what are you really afraid of, and what's underneath that? What's underneath that fear? You know, like trying to go into the deep and discover, like dig and discover what's really going on, right? So how I discovered with the men and the providing sex thing is that, you know, underneath this kind of fear was the whole story of, you know, men will be only interested in me if I provide them with sex, right? Rather than who I am as a person, which isn't true. It's a story, but it feels so ingrained that it still shows up. Like, it's been so ingrained, like it still shows up every so often, right? And then the last question is, what is the worst thing that could happen? If you went up and you did that thing and you said that your vulnerability, what's the worst thing that could happen? And do you die in that scenario? Because basically unless you die, you're gonna be safe and you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine. You're still gonna live. You're still gonna be able to process it, right? So the third thing, and this is the big thing that I was getting to, is that put yourself in spaces, right? Deliberately put yourself in spaces, safe spaces with men like I have, to explore what are the things that come up. So this is one of the reasons that I go to workshops with men and women, is because it provides a whole different dynamic. And when I'm doing conscious relating work or tantric work in workshop space with men, I find all the stuff shows up for me, and I start noticing all the stories. I'll start to notice where I pull my energy away, where I avoid certain men. Why do I avoid certain men? What's their energy showing me? Like, what, all of it gets shown to me, right? And the beauty of these workshops is it creates safe space to talk about it, and to talk about what's coming up for you, and even create practices and exercises where you can actually conversate about, yeah, I'm noticing that I'm wanting to pull away from your energy, or I'm wanting to connect with you, and these are my vulnerabilities about it, and like, this is what I love about these spaces. And so this is what I do. Like, I hold these spaces in my workshops, and I hold this with other, like, one-on-one as well. But I love running women's workshops, but I also love doing something with men and women. And so this is why I'm excited for my upcoming workshop, which is actually called The Art of Loving Men. It's a women's workshop, but on day 2, we're bringing men in. And this is the stuff we're going to explore, right? So the first thing is we teach women about men, and I'm co-facilitating this with Aaron Kleinerman. So he's going to bring in the male aspect. And we're going to explore understanding men and our vulnerabilities and our stories and how we show up and our walls and what men are really like, and understanding men and how to connect with them, and how to, you know, and what are some of the vulnerable, is it around approaching men? Is it fear of rejection, or is it something different? And I'll be addressing the things that I used to struggle with now that I don't struggle with as well. And then we bring in the sacred sexuality aspect as well, connecting on a more intimate level, and look at the vulnerabilities around that. So this is one of my main areas that I work on, is actually, you know, the sexuality part and loving men and sensuality and things like that. So the day 2 though is we're going to bring men in, and if you have a partner, you can have that person come, or someone that you want to bring to partner with, or you can be mixed in with everyone, and because you're going to swap partners, but if you want to have the same partner, you can. And so we bring the men in, and we're going to explore all of this with real life men. And so it's a real experiential. So it's not a workshop where you just go and learn about men, which is what I've been doing. It's actually, no, we're going to learn about men, and then we're going to practice with the men, and we're going to explore like what actually comes up for you, and then have those conversations with men. Because I've found, like, the more that I've talked to men and spoken my vulnerability to men, the more that they actually, the more my walls break down. When I start to see men, and I start to see their sensitivity, and I start to see their longing to be loved, and I start to see their vulnerabilities, and their fear of rejection and their fear around approaching women. And then I realized like how much they're just the same in so many ways. I mean, we're different, but we long for the same things. We long for so many of the same things, to be seen and to be loved. And yeah, we have similar fears. And so when I drop into these spaces and with men that open up so deeply, it just helps me feel safe and it helps me break down my walls. And so I love putting myself in these spaces, and I love creating these spaces for other women to experience the same thing. And this has opened up my heart so much. It's opened up my heart that I now feel like I'm willing to have these super vulnerable conversations that I would never have felt comfortable doing before. But I also am surrounded with men that I can hold space for that as well, and are willing to hold space for me to share that with them as well. So that's the other piece to that, is like, you know, meeting and surrounding yourself with men that are on this journey as well of self-development, of personal development, of learning and growing, and who want to have these conversations, and they want to be able to hold space for as well, and they want to open up, right? So my foot has gone numb. Ow. Okay. I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say for this time, but I will go check the questions. Okay. It goes from the... So the friend zone does exist, but it shouldn't be considered permanent. Yeah, like, no, I don't think so necessarily. But again, like, it's about having a vulnerable conversation. I mean, there's definitely, I do notice, like, a lot of men put themselves in the friend zone by the way they show up. And sometimes it's usually by being the nice guy. And when I say the nice guy, it's like almost like an overly nice, like, you know, you do anything for the person, you overgive, you rescue, all this kind of stuff, and you give your power away a little bit. And so, like, a woman kind of, and this goes both ways, by the way. A woman often wants a man that's going to really set his standards, right, and his boundaries, and is going to say no at times, right? Not in an asshole kind of way, but is really not going to be available all the time, right? So you don't want to be, that's when a man will tend to get friend zone, when he's like in the overgiving, rescuing kind of place. You have to set some boundaries and standards and not always be available. And this goes both ways for men and women, right? So what else? Just jellyfish and we will feel you for sure. What does jellyfish mean? I don't know what that means. Lord. Okay. To be a fly on the wall. Yeah. I love it, man. Okay. Arlen, is that? Sorry, I thought that was an I. If you simply shine your light at me with desire, this man will feel empowered to approach you. Me too, I fear rejection and have no interest in rocking your boat if there's no interest. Smile at me and show me your eyes, you're present. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I so agree. This is the thing, like, I consciously know this. Like, all I have to do is smile and like shine some light and eye contact and you know, like this, yeah. And then the guy's like, okay, this woman actually might be interested and be drawn to actually approach me, right? Instead of me having to do the approaching or feeling like I have to. Yeah. I've also heard, like, Dave was saying that in Australia, like, we have to make it really obvious, like, because a lot of men don't pick it up, and so we have to, like, make it super obvious that we're interested, which that feels more vulnerable for me. I'm like, whoa, like, yeah, okay. Matthew says, so interesting. I didn't know this was a thing. I'd be so happy to have a woman come up and talk to me. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I so get that. Like, how many men that actually in the workshop, Dave asked how many men would love a woman to approach them, and every man in the whole workshop put his hand up. So, yeah. Maybe it's pressure of expectation from an unseen outcome. Yeah, I agree with that, Ryan, as well. There's a feeling like it's actually about putting pressure on myself. So I think you named it before I spoke it, to fulfill an expectation of a man that I might not be willing to give. And I've already discounted it before I've even got to that, right? And I think there's also vulnerability around, there's definitely a vulnerability around not having that desire reciprocated. But there's another piece of that as well that's coming through. It's something around, no, it's not coming to me right now. It'll come to me at some point. Cullen says, I'm afraid of dating or even approaching any woman, but the fear isn't just rejection. My dating history has been filled with betrayal. I've been used and humiliated for many selfish reasons. So as a result, I decided to go MGTOW. I don't know what that means. MGTOW. Me. Okay. I don't know if I can approach anyone again. What are your thoughts, EJ? So my thoughts are that when my book is published, that you will have to get a copy and read it, and it will take you through healing the wounds of the betrayal and then coming back to having a healthy relationship with self. So sometimes what happens, right? So we go into being overbound, like if we've been hurt a lot in relationship in the past, sometimes we'll go into being over-boundaried and we're like, oh, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to approach anyone. I don't want to get involved because I always end up getting hurt, right? The problem with this is you put this big fuck off wall up and then no one's going to probably come and talk to you. And I know this because this was me. And so I'm going to do another live stream on the fuck off wall at some point soon. So what you need to do is actually go into healing the wounds of the betrayal and looking at that, and then you'll discover ways that you can show up differently and ways that honor yourself and ways that won't lead to betrayal, because there'll be some beliefs around betrayal, there'll be some wounds of betrayal that need to be healed, and you'll keep being re-wounded until you go in to heal those wounds. So my book, which is going to be published soon, is the link for that is tinyurl.com/heallovebook. And that's like the link to get notified of the release. So you can get a first copy, which will be discounted. In the meantime, though, you can go to my 5-day free program, which is, I'll put the link here, but it's tinyurl.com/5 days to love. So 5 days to love with the number 5. And then my Facebook group has the 5 days in there, which is the group's Heal Your Love Wounds. And that one will basically, in the what's it called? The pinned post has all the videos for the 5 days. That's going to take you through healing those wounds of betrayal, and any other wounds like that might be there. Great. Yes, Deb, I don't online date. I don't approach men. I avoid and they don't approach me. Yeah, and I think, Deb, the thing is, I think that you and I both can have this kind of intimidation factor around as well, that men might not approach, because there's also this non-openness as well. Maybe like if there's a bit of a wall up, it's like you're not even allowing men in. So I'm going to do another live stream around the wall, on the wall which is not allowing in. And then I used to be like, why don't men approach me? And I realized I have this whole wall up, right? So yeah, I'm Deb. I so love that we're so on point together. Like we work, Deb and I both work intimately with men with the tantra and body work, and yet, you know, going and approaching man in a personal scenario is like, oh shit. Yeah. So what else? Okay, you see these other comments. No, there's not. Okay. So the only last thing I want to mention here is, if you do want to come along and explore some of this in a really beautiful space with myself and Aaron, and with some beautiful men that we're going to bring in, let me know and I'll send you the link to the Facebook event, and I'll post it on here as well. That's on the 19th to 20th of May. And yeah, well, thank you so much everyone for listening and listening to my hearing my vulnerability around this. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much, and stay posted, stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream where I'll jump on and share that thing that you don't know that I'm sharing yet. All right, much love. Bye.